Okay.
Yeah, I suggest we'll start near.
Yeah. So I will do a reminder meanwhile.
Yeah, I'm sure some other people will join us in several minutes, but let's start on time. Okay?
Yeah.
Fine. Hi everyone, my name is Yoni Sapir, and I am the chairperson of Israel Home Guardians, a grassroots environmental movement, the founder of Israel Clean Energy Forum, and a board member of Life and Environment, an umbrella platform uniting the varied organization of Israel environmental movement. I'm very happy to see you all here today on Earth Day, together with reps of the German energy company EnergyAgencyNRW, which provides diverse energy services in the German states of Nordrhein-Westphalia, the country's most populous states and highest energy consumer. Our meeting today will address the question of how Nordrhein-Westphalia intends to meet the EU's commitments to reduce 55% of its greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and 100% by 2050 in the various sectors of industry, transportation, electricity, agriculture, and waste disposal. You're welcome to note any questions in the chat in Hebrew or in English, and we will address these questions in between the presentation chapters. I'm honored to introduce Dr. Gil Yaron, the first rep in Israel for Nordrhein-Westphalia. As the director of the state's only mission abroad, he heads at Glitz, a team to intensify bilateral ties in such a diverse fields such as security, research, cultural and youth exchange, as well as intensify business and institutional relationships. You're welcome, Dr. Yaron, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Yoni, and thanks to Nir and Yoni for helping us organize this event, and also to my co-worker, Dr. Nikolai Bayer, he's here with us, who did a lot of work in helping us bring this together. Just a couple of words, and thank you for your introduction. You've said almost everything I wanted to say, so thank you for doing that job for me. Many of you haven't heard this combination of letters NRW, which means North Rhine-Westphalia, before. And part of our task as the office of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia in Israel is that the same way as you've learned what BMW is, you will learn what NRW is, and it will become a household name, because it should be at least as known in Israel as the state of Bavaria is, and everybody of you knows who Bavaria is. Now, North Rhine-Westphalia has more citizens than North Rhine-Westphalia, higher economic output, but it has a very cumbersome name, which is part of our image problem. But North Rhine-Westphalia has been the industrial heartland of Germany, as a matter of fact, of Europe for more than a century now, and as such has faced enormous challenges, which is managing and succeeding to overcome over time. And one of the agencies that's very important in trying to help solve and overcome these challenges is the Energy Agency of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which was founded in 1990 as an agency to help the state deal with energy questions, to bring key players together, to develop new strategies. But our speaker will introduce a little bit more about the Energy Agency in the last part of his talk. A brief word about our office. As been stated before, we were opened on the 1st of March 2020, just a couple of days before the state of Israel was closed down because of the coronavirus. Actually, it was opened by Armin Laschet. You may have heard his name in the news a couple of days ago. He's now the official candidate for becoming Chancellor of the state of Germany for the moment still is the largest party in Parliament. But he was here personally to open this office, and it shows really the deep commitment of the state government to this bilateral relationship with Israel, which is surprising if you think that a state like North Rhine-Westphalia with 18 million inhabitants on an area twice the size of the state of Israel chooses to open its first representative office outside of Europe here in Israel, not in the United States, not in Japan, not anywhere else, but here in Israel. this shows several things. It shows the historical commitment of North Rhine-Westphalia to its friendship with Israel, but it shows much more than looking backward. It is looking forward to the future, and it wants to connect Israeli and North Rhine-Westphalian companies and civil society and people activists like you and government ministries like you represent, to help us together build a better future, because we have very similar challenges, as you will see soon. And I think together we can come up with very good solutions. Some analysts call this friendship a match made in heaven, because each side is bringing something very unique to this relationship that can very much benefit the other side. And we'll be happy to elaborate on that on one-on-one talk. Just as this relationship isn't only looking backward, but is very much looking forward, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Stéphane Lindtker, whose own biography very much embodies this kind of history. He's a senior manager at, he's a senior representative of the EnergyAgencyNRW, and he's a trained geophysicist, which means that by training, actually, he was trained to look for coal, which was really the basis of the energy structure in North Rhine-Westphalia, and to a large extent still is. But today, just as North Rhine-Westphalia is changing its outlook, instead of looking down, he has to look up at the changing climate and find solutions for it also in the energy question. And it's a huge challenge. You know, there's, in terms of using renewable energy, Germany as a whole is very much in front of Israel today. But if you take our state, there's much more similarities between North Rhine-Westphalia and Israel, and the challenges that they are facing and the solutions that may be found. And it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Stéphane Lindtker, and I'm very much looking forward to your talk. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jill. I'm not quite sure whether it's now on my duty to give the presentation. I just hope I can load it, this presentation. I just started. Just to, okay. Can you see it?
Yes, we see it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's begin. Yes, thank you very much for this warm introduction. And yeah, you're right. I'm a childhood of this, let's say, a little bit energy transition in our state. But I'm not coming from North Rhine-Westphalia. I was born in Lower Saxonia, but that doesn't matter. It's my job career is here in North Rhine-Westphalia, and I studied at a university of this state. So I have prepared some slides, many slides. So it's my interest to show you 4 topics. I just go one slide further. I would like to show you 4 topics. The framework conditions from the national view, that's important because we are not Germany, we are a state in Germany. Our local focus, Mr. Jaron mentioned some really important topics in this coal and steel-based economy. Some data about the agency, why we are there, what we are doing. That's important to get in touch with you or with the Clean Energy Forum or with other groups, environmental groups, to see what are our common goals, what are our instruments, how we are working, and at the end, some project examples. I would like to interrupt a little bit these 4 chapters, just to have a small break, to get a coffee or to a tea or go to toilet or what else, and to have the chance to start the dialogue. So after every chapter, we have the opportunity to have some questions just for 4 minutes or 5 minutes, and at the end we have a little bit more time. But this is not a lesson in the university. It's just a start to exchange our knowledge, to exchange our ideas, and therefore we should keep it in this way. Well, let's a little bit start with a view of Germany. You know, energy transition. that's the word, Energiewende in German. It's not an energy turnaround because we are not moving back. We are on a transition path, and you can see here in this picture, what does it mean? For me, it's a very simple picture, but it shows the main things. So the way from less renewables to more renewables, the phasing out maybe of nuclear here in Germany and fossil fuels, especially in Northern Westphalia, the reduction of CO2 emission, a very important point. The time period, we have nearly 60 years in this frame. 60 years means a normal 2 generation. I started with my career in the older times. Now I'm part of this transition, but my children, our children have to do much more. And all this is, well, guided by main political topics from Kyoto in the beginning to the sustainable goals of the UN. Paris is very important as a very important agreement. Yesterday, maybe you have seen it in the EU, a new climate protection law with new targets, much stronger targets. And today, the climate talks invited from the US and China, where also Germany is part of it. So that's a little bit the frame. You can interpret much more, but for this simple interpretation, I think it's okay. If you look a little bit deeper, you see, well, some internals. You see there's a state regulation in the energy market. The energy market is a political market. Whether you are talking about nuclear, whether you are talking about coal, whether you are talking about renewables, there are so many political influence, stimulation, and so on and so on. It's a liberalized market now. Unbundling is what we've seen here in Europe. The decarbonization is very important. So the change in the energy mix from fossil fuels to, well, renewables. And together with all this, we have a new owner structure. So it's also from centralization to decentralization. A wind park is not such a centralized system like a mega multi-gigawatt power plant, coal-fired power plant. Well, and how to communicate today, that's the digitization. That's also important, especially if you're looking to the renewable energy sector and wind and solar. So the predictions are very important. The combinations between weather situation and power system and so on and so on. So all this is a fundamental rethink from large scale driven systems here to small scale decentralized energy topics. Well, the main measures for Germany in this development, you can see here, it's the development on renewable energy in all sectors. It's not only the power sector. It's, in Germany, it's a little bit different to Israel. We have to heat more than 6 months a year in the year. So we need also, well, let's say renewable energy for the heat system or heating systems, also in industry. The transport sector is important. Yeah, together with this development, we are phasing out nuclear. The last power plants will shut down next year. That's also a critical point because the nuclear technology is, well, let's say CO2 free. So how can we have an alternative? Together with all this is the efficiency strategy, so less consumption. So that's more, I would say it's more an education system, but also the increase in energy efficiency and technology. Do we have all the technology we need? It's a big question. Today we are looking to hydrogen, we are looking to other solutions. So, but this is not market based today. So it's all well, a little bit more than research, but it's not a mass market. All this is the focus on carbon emission, but together we need a secure and the safeguard of energy security because the Mr. Jon mentioned, we are an economic powerhouse here in our state. We want to keep this, and this is very important as one big point in all the decisions we have to make. Yeah, the energy transition, the Energiewende, is a long-term strategy based, but also on public acceptance. And I come to this a little bit later. Behind this, these measures, there are, well, targets in detail, targets based on heat, targets based on power, targets based in the e-mobility sector. You can see here the main points. The big goal is climate protection. Beside, we have an exit strategy in nuclear power. We have to be safe with our supply and also in the competition of the market. And for our state, especially for our state, this is new since 2 years. We have also phasing out of coal. And this is a dramatic situation for the state of Nordrhein-Westphalia. And at the end, maybe in the next 20 years, we are developing from a net producer of power in our state, maybe to a net consumer. And this is not easy for our energy system here, and there's a lot of investments to do. You see on the right side on the bottom, the data from yesterday from the EU climate protection law. So the main target is CO2 reduction by 100% in 2050, CO2 reduction by 55% in 2030. But if you look to the data today, I read this yesterday, today we have on the EU level a reduction of 34%. So how can we reach in the next 10 years 20% of CO2 reduction? You are all the experts in this business. You can have an answer. You can have a view on technology, capacity, and so on, and regulations and so on. I can't believe this is a realistic path. Maybe it's a good target, but how to reach this, I think we have to do much more than we are doing today. Well, next, coming a little bit back to this phasing out coal, because this is the main instrument of CO2 reduction possibilities. And since 2018, we have this German law and this German program. The main thing is just to phase out the coal-fired power generation. There are 2 regions in Germany. That's our part here in Nordrhein-Westphalia, and in the eastern part, in the lignite belt, there we have also some very big power plants. So in general, there are 2 states of these states in Germany who are directly involved in this. There are extreme structural changes. It's not just only to switch off a power plant. There are a lot of things to do. There are workforces, there are secure on energy, and so on. But behind all this, you see also on the left side in the bottom, the graph, the figures, there's a detailed plan how to phase out each coal-fired power plant, and they started immediately. So this path influence up to now or from now on daily the situation of the energy market in our state and in Germany. Coming to the figures of Germany, I will show you this for NRW a little bit later. You can see, focusing on the renewable sector, we are on a good path. We are better than the estimated track, especially in the focus on renewable in the power sector. Just only in the power sector. Wind is the major technology, offshore and onshore. Offshore is massive growing. Photovoltaic, biomass are the other big ones. Geothermal is a little bit less, and beside that, we have in the moment the gas market is growing. Coal, lignite is the most important resource, with a big target here, or a big resource here in our state, south of Düsseldorf. Hard coal, well, there's imported hard coal. There is no more hard coal mining in Germany. So we have to buy this from abroad, from Colombia, from the Philippines, from Australia. Well, it's also a question, what causes on CO2 to transport all this, and so on. But coal is phasing out, gas is a little bit growing, and nuclear is at the end in the next year. For the renewables in the power sector, we are on a good track. You can see it in the next slide here. The power sector is well growing. This is not so in the heat sector. We are on a steady level, but it's not a growing level. There must be some more regulations or some more incentives or some more innovations in the market to give an impulse on this. And in the mobility sector, I would say we are more on a decrease path. So it's not that high like in 2007. It's much lower, and there is less impulse to this market. Biofuels is not the dominant fuel. E-mobility is just only in the private sector, maybe in the fleet car situation for companies. But if we look into trucks and buses and all this, we are not. I think there is a discussion between the technology drivers, whether it's now e-mobility or whether it's now hydrogen or other fuels. Gas is also a fuel for this sector. At the end, for Germany, we see all this in a result of greenhouse gas emissions. And well, it's declining, but it's not this path government would like to have. And we missed the target 2020, and we will also not on track to reach the target 2030. So to see Germany is a front runner in technology, that's correct, just at the beginning of this well, transition process with a lot of renewables. But today we have, or personally I have the feeling we have to do much more to steer the availability, to give impulses, new impulses to the market. To summarize all this, it's not my answer, but it's my interpretation. This is from expert bodies talking with the government, and also from universities and think tanks. I just read only the highlight sentences. The displacement of fossil fuels is far too slow. So especially with the announcement from yesterday, with the new targets of the EU level, there are today from the environmental ministry in Berlin, the announcement from the minister, from the lady minister, that we were phasing out coal much faster than we said yesterday. So this is one topic. We will miss the efficiency targets. Efficiency is one major strategy also to reduce the energy amount, especially in the industry sector. We will also miss the climate target 2020. Maybe we will have some bigger jumps in the future when we switch off the coal-fired power plants. And at the end, there must be much more investment in the technical infrastructure, much more dialogue with the people, with the communities, with the people living around these technologies, whether it's a wind park or a solar park or other things. And maybe we have to put into the market, especially in the financial market, much more incentives. That's the summary. It's from last year. You see January 2020, but in between there happens not so much because of the Corona situation. So the progress in energy installations and the progress in energy management solutions on public level was not so great between the last year and this year. So this is one result, one comment to the situation in Germany. And this is with this slide also, let's say, the end of the first chapter to see what happens in Germany. And I will give now some time for discussions or for questions. I point out some topics just only to have something in mind. For example, who is the ownership of the new power matrix? Who can participate? What are the funding and taxation regimes? Is the tendering process the right one to have the right, let's say, to have the wind and solar development in all the regions, or it's just only steering a little bit? What is with national regulations and laws? So there are some aspects on a national level. But it's up to you to have some question. And I will just hand over to Nia or to Jill to manage this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wants to ask? I have one question regarding the coal. You said you are phasing out of coal. When do you intend to finalize this move?
Yeah, depends who you're asking. So the minister from the environmental ministry said this morning in the news, so we have to phase out until 2030. So within the, let's say within the next 10 years. Within this coal phasing out law from government, we have a date to 2038. So it's just 6-8 years longer. And from the strategy of the state here of Nordrhein-Westphalia, because this state is, we have the most coal-fired power plants in Germany, based here in our state. For our government, for the it's nearly 2035. Yeah, so around 15 years. So it's not such long period because behind this change, you have also to develop a new energy infrastructure. Yeah, because these coal-fired power plants are bringing power to the grid. Yeah, they're producing power. What happens if we switch them off? It's a complete new grid infrastructure, and so on and so on. And on these sites, we have no place for wind turbines. Yeah, we have no place for solar. We have maybe some storage capacities because this is a building infrastructure you can reuse for other purpose. But we have not this power capacity around. Yeah, that's a big question.
I understand, thank you. And before I hang out to Boaz, I just want to finalize this issue. I saw that in 250, you still plan to have fossil capacity. I presume this will be out of gas. What should be the percentage of power capacity out of gas in 200 in 250?
Yeah. It is gas. It is gas because you need a backup situation by your own. We have no nuclear, so we need another system, and this is gas. Some figures said it's around 10%, some figures said it's around 20%. Maybe it's in between, I'm not sure. Because 2050, it's the next generation. It's not we, I would say. We will have in between different political systems, and maybe we also find a new technology. What is with fusion technology? Yeah, what is with this and others? So, what is with hydrogen? We can produce so much green hydrogen that we are able to implement this in the gas sector. Yeah. We will see, but it's less than 20%.
Thank you. Boaz, please go ahead.
Thank you, Yoni. Hi, I'm Boaz. I work for E.ON, which is a DSO out of Essen in Germany. Yeah. I think it's the largest DSO in Europe now after acquiring Energy. the deal with RWE. So still, I work out of Israel. I'm not really familiar with lots of the policy and kind of the economics of Germany. And I'm wondering about the topic of price of electricity and the impact of the entire Renewable Energy Act on the price of electricity, which we know had some fluctuations, and some customers got very much higher prices when transitioning to renewables. Is there anything that the policy requires, like tracking the prices? Are there any subsidies for customers, or are we expecting the prices to be cheaper than what used to be before when we used fossil and nuclear?
Yeah. That's a very important point. I have no price figure here, but over the last, let's say, decade, we have a rising price, especially for the end consumers in the power market. This is because behind this price there are a lot of taxes, renewable energy taxes, CHP taxes, grid taxes, and so on and so on. And at the end consumer is paying for this, because there are a lot of bigger companies, intensive consumers, they are free of these taxes, and the other people in the community have to pay for it. So we as end consumer have to pay for it. The really interesting thing is, first, this is accepted. This is accepted by the consumers. That's quite interesting. So they want this change, whether the price is much higher. The higher price is the driver of efficiency strategies, also for the industry. So that's also interesting. So high prices is an opener for innovations. And on the other side, it's quite interesting, especially in good wind terms. The power producing price is the same like in coal in the moment in Germany. So for this discussion, there is no really an important argument to keep on coal. The produce, it's lignite, yeah, lignite. If you analyze these data, the quite interesting thing is that the grid owners, like an E.ON or like an RWE, are the companies who make the big price. So the production price are very low, and the consumer price the sales price are very high. And in between, there are only few companies, the grid owner companies and the distribution companies, and that's not so much in Germany. They are managing this situation. So it looks like, I'm not an analyst in that case, but it looks like that there's a big earning by these companies between producing and selling. And that's a very critical discussion, because the political parties always said in several years the price will go down with renewable, and in the moment it's rising and rising. And in between are companies who are managing the grid. And that's, I don't know how you can solve this, but the grid costs are very high, much higher than the years before, because of this fluctuated situation of wind and solar and the management of the grid. But as I said, the energy price is also a political price. There are a lot of funding regimes behind, and so on and so on. But fact is, the producing price from renewables is in the moment the same like from coal in Germany.
That's very interesting. And from my end, I can tell that I think as a grid operator, I think about 80%, don't catch me on the number. Yeah. About 80% of our revenues come from the regulated business of the distribution grid. But on the other hand, most of our investments and work is on upgrading the grid so that it is flexible and can balance all the renewable energy.
It's a tremendous investment in the grid infrastructure. That's the same here, and it's billions of euros, and especially that we change the regions where we have now the monostructures. So in the past, we have this coal-fired power plant in the western part and in the eastern part of Germany, some nuclear power plant in the northern part and in the southern part of Germany. So it was a good structure around Germany. But in the future, we have the multi-mega, multi-gigawatt wind parks in the offshore wind parks in the northern part, and some bigger solar parks in the southern part of Germany. We are less in the western part and less in the eastern part. This forces tremendous, gives tremendous problems to the grid situation. So you need a lot of transport capacity in the grid. And that's these big investments and these revenue in the system.
Thank you for the answer.
Any other questions, please? I suggest we'll move forward, Mr. Lindker.
Yeah, okay, we can answer later. Okay, coming a little bit to my state here, or to our state, North Rhine-Westphalia. Some data are mentioned, nearly 18 million people living here, and it's a really important economic powerhouse. 710 billion euro GDP, that's enormous. Well, you know this, you know the city of Düsseldorf, you know the soccer clubs, Dortmund, you know maybe Essen as a mining town, you know Cologne. This is because in Düsseldorf or in Cologne, there are some airports, in Dortmund too. So traveling from Israel to Germany or to this area, you have these airports in mind. But there's also a rural area. I give you here 3 examples: the Eifel in the western part, Münsterland in the southern part, and the Siebengebirge in the volcanic area in the southeastern part. So it's really an interesting area. Means nothing is normal. We have no desert. We have no mountain range, flat. We have no not used farmland. So all this is not available. What we have a long experience in developing of energy systems. You mentioned it, coming from coal and steel. Here are the experts. We have had the first universities dealing with energy systems. We have the engineers, we have the workforce. And you can see here the left picture in the years 1930, how many chimneys are there. This is the city of Gelsenkirchen, called the city of 1,000 fires. And the sky was dark. Yeah, that's beside this. Yeah, it's not the wonderful sky I can see here from Boas in the background with the wind turbine or the sun. It was a dark sky. But we solved this in the 70s, last century, in the 80s, with new modern fire plants, coal fire plants. And today the sky in the Ruhr Valley is blue. But there is a new challenge. And there is a new challenge to change from today's net power producer situation, from coal, based on coal, to renewable energy. This is the framework in the EU, this is the framework in Germany, and this is also the framework in our state. You can see here some figures in the energy sector. We are producing nearly 30% of Germany's energy power here till today. We are consuming the same, so because of these 18 million people around, and the big industry, we have aluminum industry, we have the mining industry, we have the steel industry, we have the automotive industry, we have the chemical industry. All this is based here. A lot of power installed. Yes, no nuclear, never. We have never had nuclear power here in our area. But some renewables, around 16%. And a lot of people are working in this field of energy here because of this long tradition as well. Nearly all universities, and there are a lot of universities, more than 70 universities in this state, have a topic on renewables in the moment. So that's quite interesting to see. It's an energy hub too, not only economic hub, it's also an energy hub. How important coal is, you see here in our state. You see the situation in our area. E.ON is also mentioned, but especially RWE, and these are only all coal-fired power plants. And this is in the horizontal way, this is the Ruhr Valley, and in the north-south direction, this is the Rhine Valley. You can see along these two valleys, we have the most people living, as well as the most technical and energy infrastructure. But one result of this is, that we in our state are responsible for 1/3 of Germany's energy CO2 emissions. Because of the industry, because of the consumers, because of the power plants, 1/3 of Germany's greenhouse gas emissions are located in our state. And if we are talking on CO2 reduction, on emissions reductions, we are here in our state responsible for the position of Germany in the ranking. That's really clear, and therefore it is important that also energy transition happens here in our state, on all levels and with all parties. When we fail, Germany will fail, and this is relatively clear. You see here a little bit the comparison. The right figure I showed before. The left side, you see our data, just to see nearly more than 80% of our power mix or energy consumption, here energy consumption, is coming from fossil fuels today, more than 80%. So phasing out coal, having this energy transition on a progress, this has a real big impact for our state. And we have to be part of it. It's not just that government said to do it, but we have also be part of it, especially also we as agency, we as people living here, and that's very important. That's a comparison between overall Germany and special focus on our state. Looking on phasing out coal, that's the main important strategy in the moment. We're starting directly here in our area. We keep the most efficient power plants, and they are not so old, open until the last moment, that the biggest units from RWE and the high efficiency power plants. Yes, there is a dramatic change for the companies focusing on jobs. There are big job losses, and on the social aspect, the government have to look for solutions. You can retire the people, but not all people are in the age to retire. So you have to find new jobs. Behind all this, there is a tremendous and very big financing scheme. I would say this, it's not only funding, it's much more. For this structural change, the German government will pay or spend money over this time of the next 15, 20 years by 40 billion euros. From these 40 billion, the government will hope here that 15 billion will directly be involved in our state. That's very, very much money. And it's a high responsibility to spend this money in the direct channels, and very responsible. And it's not the situation to paint your house with this money. That's you have to do to look to the energy market. You have to do to the infrastructure situation. You have to do to the education market to bring people in new jobs. To have to do to new scientific options, to build up clusters, to to open maybe new universities or technical centers, just to generate new jobs also in the energy field. That's a big responsibility. And to cover all this and to have a political framework for this development, the state government develops an energy supply strategy for the state. And herein, with this energy supply strategy, there are, the framework is mentioned, there are some details mentioned, and this is the framework for the work within the next years. This is a political framework. It is designed in consultancy with big industry players. It is designed in consultancy with the associations, the energy associations and others. So it's let's say it's a common paper in the view from the state of Nordrhein-Westphalia to the next years. And here first I have some strategic target from this energy supply strategy. Well, safeguard of energy security, yes, this means safeguard also of power and heat and gas. We want also be also in the future attractive place for companies. From the 20 biggest companies in Germany, 10 are located here in our state. Yes, it must be an important part also in the climate protection regime. The focus is on renewable development, but also in this situation, sector coupling. So to use the heat for the power sector, as well to use the power for the heat sector, storage solutions and efficiency strategies. We must have a very important view on urban energy solutions. So 16, 17, 18 million people living here. And if they will refurbish their homes or if they build new homes, it must have a focus on efficiency, on modern building standards, on CO2 emission reductions, and so on. And at the end, yes, NRW is an international place. We have here a huge Japanese community, huge Chinese community. We are linked to all around the world, also in the energy sector. So this should be also one of the big strategies to be an international place for research and economy. These are not very focused targets. These are headlines. If we look a little bit deeper, we have here some headlines. Personally, from my side, there are missing targets. But here are some targets. So the CO2 emissions should be in the energy sector by 70%. CO2 reduction, in the energy sector by 70%. Well, this is realistic because if we phasing out the coal side, we're also reducing the emissions. We have two targets in renewable energy. We have in the wind energy capacity up to 10 gigawatt, and in the solar sector a little bit more to 11.5 gigawatt installed capacity. This is a lot for our state, I can tell you, and I will show you a graph later. Yeah, okay, for me it's a question mark. We will shut down the coal-fired power plants. I said the data 2035. I would say plus 1 or 2 years. Depends on the development on renewables. And we will also focus on some other technologies like geothermal energy. We have just started a competition with 3 areas here in our state for deep geothermal supply, as well as hydrogen. You see the bottom line on the right side, we have an own hydrogen roadmap in our state, linked to the national hydrogen strategy as well as to European hydrogen strategy. We have, together with city utilities, there are big programs in CHP solutions, like the city of Düsseldorf with one of the modern gas-fired power plants, extracting heat to supply local city areas with heat. So these are modern strategies. This is part of this energy supply strategy. This is the future. Yeah, this is what they have in the program. Looking a little bit more in detail, what is the reality? And you can see here one figure from our state, the wind development, wind power, facts and figures. And I think we were on a good track until 2017. We had an annual growth in wind installations. This was a good path. And since 2017, there is a break. We are in the bottom of the valley. This is somehow, or this is linked to some political aspect in the state, but not only. It's also linked to some tendering processes on governmental level, national level. But if you see this development, and if you see these targets, to say in the figure in the middle below, we will reach in the wind sector 10.5 gigawatt in 2030. So within the next 10 years, and in a calculation of the Renewable Energy Association of our state, if we will reach this target, we need 940 megawatt in wind annually, additional, every year in the next 10 years, and we are at 74 megawatts, so less than 10%. I don't know how we can realize it. Yeah, so there must be much more support for these renewables. The same is in solar. It's not so dramatically, but it's the same. So we need much more power, also political power, to reach these goals. Otherwise, we will not fulfill our regional own targets. Well, and this may be part of the new election, I believe. We have next year our elections here in our state, the parliamentary elections, and these figures will be part of the discussions between the different parties. So you can see we have good targets. We have for our state a strategy phasing out coal, underlined with targets and measures. But the actual data, the realistic data are not so that I would say we can reach these targets with the instrument we have now in our state. So you can see before 2017, we have a steady growth in the development, and there were much more instruments, also political instruments, to support, for example, the wind market. This is the dialogue with the communities. This is the development plan in the regions. This is a consumer phone line if there are problems. This is a consulting service for the mayors in the communities, and so on and so on. But this is not available today. It was in the government before. So we have here good targets, but the way to reach these targets, I have to doubt. Okay, this is now the end of the NRW section with data. Both the national and the NRW sections are more framework discussion. And later now I will start with our work at the agency and some real results. But again, a little bit of break if there are some questions.
Anybody here wants to ask?
I have one question, actually. First of all, thank you. It was very, very impressive, and it shows the scope of the challenge that you're facing. This is really a minor point, but I was wondering how you're preparing for that, because I think it would also be interesting for Israeli partners. In the slide just before, you showed which energies you're going to use, and one of them that is going to stay the same. No, the one afterwards, exactly. In the bottom line, you say that energy that comes from water. will remain the same, which means dams, hydroelectric power, I presume. Do you take into account the climate change, how it will affect precipitation and water reservoirs in North Rhine-Westphalia? Because we're seeing some dramatic change there.
I think this climate change is not integrated in these data, but coming from the other side, the energy potential for hydro, that's not very big in our state. So we have some bigger rivers like the River Rhine or the River Ruhr from the Ruhr Valley, or two other smaller ones. And these rivers, you have some smaller dams on side these rivers, but you are not able to build more ones. Especially the River Rhine, you can't build a crossing building via the River Rhine. That's not possible. And therefore, there is really no more potential for hydro, for small hydro. This is really small hydro to develop this resource. So therefore, for the hydro situation, I think that's okay. But the line above for bioenergy, I very well, it's sad because bioenergy is a multi-source. It's good for the farmers, but it's also good for energy, and it's also good for fuels. So our state in the moment has no idea how to handle with the biomass. Whether 1/3 of our area is land, so we have a lot of agricultural land, we have a lot of woodlands, we can use it also for an energy purpose. But this is not part of the actual strategy in the government. So bioenergy and small hydro is not part of this development, as well as the mass development of deep geothermal energy, because that's too expensive. To drill 4,000 meters deep, it's too risky and too expensive just for heating some buildings. You reach 70 degrees Celsius or 80 degrees Celsius in that depth, 2,000 meters, 2,500 meters, and that's not usable for power plants. It's just only, so you can't produce power, you can only heat the buildings, and therefore you won't drill such deep holes. It makes no sense. So what I'm missing is here the biomass strategy. I believe that's a good potential, very secure, because it's also for food, clear, also for the feedstock and for us as people here. But it's much more potential as mentioned here in this table. Yeah.
Anybody else wants to ask? Okay. So
okay.
I suggest we'll go on. Yeah.
Yeah, we go on. No, it's a little bit more practical and some more data, but the framework is important for our acting. Yeah, energy agency of the federal state. You mentioned we are now more than 30 years here in our state, starting with 3 people in the area of energy consulting services and energy efficiency, yeah, our work here is to have let's say we are an operational platform here with a broad competence in consultancy services, this initial consultancy, because we are not allowed to go into the market directly, in competition with other companies. So we can say to do this and this and that, but if you need a real consulting, you have to go to this company. We are an expert body. We are transferring know-how. We are managing clusters. We have a big group in energy research. We are on the technical development side. We supporting market launch of new products. Just time to market is very important in these times. And we have a big group of public relations. So all you can get, all you can read. You find this also in the internet, and you are able to download a lot of brochures. Yeah, we are a non-profit organization. I have to say this. We are funded by government in EU. We are project-oriented structure. So if the targets of the government will change, also our working areas and the structure will change a little bit. Today we are 160 employees. So starting with 3, today we are 160. With each government change over the last 30 years, we get new things to do. Yeah. So we are growing, and we are a networking organization. So we are networking interests of the companies and municipalities, and somehow of consumers, with the interest of universities and also with the government. We are located with the headquarters here in Düsseldorf, but we are also located in the areas near to the customers. That's very important. So in the district areas, we are located in the communities, and that's a big point for our work. We are accepted also because we are there when we are needed. That's an important thing. Our service areas are cluster management. I will show you some examples later. This consultancy service, as I mentioned, the market initiatives, and a lot of information and knowledge management. Here are an example of our cluster work. It's dealing nearly with all the technologies we have in the renewable market, the energy efficiency market, from storage, from carbon capture usage, from heat in the buildings, from energy search, mobility question, cogeneration, all this. If I look to the worldwide energy market, I think we are not dealing with tidal energy because we have no ocean around directly. Yeah. So otherwise, with all the other topics we are dealing in a cluster management work. And if we are looking now to consultancy service, we are here also in so many areas. We are talking about with communities, and we are talking about with the industry on energy efficient strategies. We are talking about with the trade communities. We are part of the missions, or we are developing part of the mission trading schemes, and so on and so on. So all this is part of our consulting services. Our main purpose, because we are a little bit technology driven, our main purpose is to support this innovation cycle. As I mentioned, there must be much more new and innovative technologies to the market if we will reach the goals in energy transition. So therefore, we are starting in the laboratory with a cluster called energy research. These are colleagues focusing only on energy research topics. We are going via a demonstration project to show first results. So we called it in earlier times lighthouse projects, yeah, and others. And at the end, we are supporting the rollout of these technologies. For example, wood pellets, new solar panels, heat pump solution, also for industry purpose. So these are campaigns, market campaigns to roll out technologies together with information sheets. We are on exhibitions with these companies from our state. It's always a joint approach together with companies or with universities. This is a little bit our philosophy. Yes, as I mentioned, our target groups are all the universities we have here in our state, the district and administration bodies, because they are important, for example, for the wind industry. Not the government can allow a wind park. These administrative districts, we have 5 in our region, they are allowed to build a wind park. So you have to get in touch with them. You have to explain a lot. You have to influence, and so on and so on. And at the end, yes, we really reach nearly 6 to 7 million employees in our work in our area. So we are really good connected with our news magazines, with our emails, and so on and so on. Yeah, you see here some bigger figures. We have nearly 1,000 conferences per year. So you see every day 3 conferences. This is not the big ones, but it's a small meeting just parallel to our session. We have a meeting with the power plant cluster, and so on and so on. A lot of brochures, a lot of websites are available, and if you go to our internet pages, you find a lot. For me, it's sometimes too much to orientate, but you find really many things, and that's important. Yeah, one aspect, that's my team, just to make a little bit marketing for my team. We are also looking abroad. That's what we are doing here, to get in touch with other organizations, to get in touch with other governments. So we are organizing trips, for example. If you like to come to NRW, we are your partners here to organize something, from visits to B2Bs or others. We have round tables, we prepare some market analysis and so on. And I will give you here 2 examples, because I said we want to be more in detail. We have a cooperation, for example, with Fukushima. So the area, the prefecture of Fukushima, is developing an infrastructure of 100% renewables. And we are the premium partner here, and we help to design our sister agency, the Energy Agency Fukushima. So this is part of structural development, what we are doing. And on the other side, we have here a long program with the US, with communities in the US. So it's not just only political structures. So we have here with the climate smart municipality projects with communities in Minnesota. For example, we linked 5 communities in Minnesota with 5 communities from Nordrhein-Westphalia. And they get in touch, and they're talking about climate protections, energy solutions, different understanding what means energy efficiency, because that's really interesting to see that the American people means energy efficiency. They're completely different to our meaning of energy efficiency, and so on and so on. This is one of our programs, and very, very successful. Yeah, this is a little bit what we are doing as agency, to say we are linked between different bodies. We are developing partners in the technology side, and we are supporting international development with other organizations or governments. The question marks means a little bit an interruption, so it's open for questions.
I have one question. How do you find yourself? What are the sources of revenues to the organization?
How you what? I don't understand.
How do you fund yourself? I mean,
budget-wise.
Yeah,
how do you
the budget. Yeah, the budget is coming today. 50% by the state of Nordrhein-Westphalia and 50% by EU money. And I believe, I just looked to my boss, Michael Baumann, I believe in the moment it's around 18 million euro per year. That's correct?
No, it's 20 million, or
18
this year. Yeah, right.
So,
50% from Nordrhein-Westphalia and 50% from the European Union, the EFRE fund.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to ask?
Yes, I have a question, please. Hi, your work is very impressive, and thank you so much for this presentation. I would like to ask, please, about the obstacles on the way. We have a very, I would say, resourceful energy sector here that is pushing forward the gas and is trying in every way possible to show and to say, to claim that the attempts for renewable energy in Germany failed, and everywhere around the world they tried, don't really success. and that at least in the next 5 to 10 years, gas will still be the main source of energy everywhere. And I would like to know how much do you need to deal with these problems also, and how do you do so?
Michael, would you like to answer? So I hand over to my boss, but I can do, but maybe he can do it better.
Yeah, maybe I can try to answer the question. It's difficult. So we have always this fight between the renewable energy companies and the fossil dominated companies. And up to now, I think one could say that today it's not possible to have 100% renewable energy supply now for our state. So in Germany, Stefan showed this numbers. We have around more than 40% of the electricity coming from renewables, and so it's much more than the scenarios in the past have foreseen in this sector. So I think the politics is in Germany, in North Rhine-Westphalia, and as far as I see in all states in the world, on the way to have more renewable energies. But in Germany, now we phase out from nuclear, we phase out from coal, but so we need gas too. And so our state in the neighborhood, the Netherlands, they already said we will stop the gas production for our state, and so the future will be hydrogen. So we will produce via renewable electricity and electrolyzers hydrogen, and one can use the pipelines for gas now, in the future for hydrogen. And there is a lot of investigations in this field, and I think this will be the future in Germany and North Rhine-Westphalia too. But up to now, we still need gas and the fossil fuels.
But is there a strong opposition to you? Do you feel that there is a strong pushback by the gas companies that are trying to I don't know, even sabotage your efforts?
No, I don't think so. So our big gas utilities, so OGE, former Aeon Gas, they work on this hydrogen strategy because they want to keep their investments in the pipelines for gas. And so this is, I think, a feasible way. So there is sometimes the discussion between the all-electric world and the gas world. But I think the gas companies, they look into the future and they see, okay, I don't know when and when. There are a lot of scenarios. The future is hydrogen.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe one comment. So the breakthrough for the renewables in Germany was the so-called EEG law, the Renewable Act. This was very important because this gave the investors in the renewable energy sector in the beginning. This was private people. This was communities. These were cooperation. It was not the big. This was not the big utilities. Yeah, this law gave them the allowance to build wind parks, to invest in wind parks, to link the wind parks to the national grid. So there is a must. So the grid owners have to link wind parks and solar parks to their grid. It's a must by law, by national law. And that was important to say, if there are on the local level investments or interest to integrate renewable in the energy infrastructure or in the energy mix, then they have to do it, and they can do it. And this was the breakthrough for other players, as I mentioned in my slide before, who are participating in this market. There were obstacles, yes, because I know there were companies who said, no, in your area, you can't link your wind park to my grid. You have to build by your own 20 kilometers link to another point. And there were a lot of fights by law over the last years. But today, this is all accepted. And you can see it by the company E.ON. E.ON just changed their company structure and bought the Energy. The Energy is one of the leading renewable energy companies. So you can see that there's a really also mental change in the big companies. So today, you are really open to invest and to build your own private, let's say, rooftop solar situation and to link it to the grid. There's let's say the old economy, also the gas economy, they have to accept it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
I could ask you how competitive in terms of pricing is renewable energy as compared to coal and gas in Germany? Because here in Israel, we just had, and please, you guys are the experts, but if I remember correctly, we just had opened a solar power plant in Israel, which for the first time is producing electricity at a lower rate than the ones using fossil fuels. Is that also the case in Germany?
That is the case for the new offshore wind parks, yes. They are cheaper than the coal-fired, lignite-fired coal-fired plant here in our area. So they're competitive today. Yeah, not the older ones, but if it's a modern turbines, if the wind park is big enough, then you have a competitive price. Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I would add something. Stefanos showed the cooperation with Japan, with the prefecture of Fukushima, and this started 9 years ago after the terrible event. And we recommended the prefecture to found an energy agency. And 3 years ago, they founded Energy Agency, and we are close together. And I just want to offer the idea, if you are interested in opening or founding an energy agency, we are there to help you and to talk with you, and maybe we can work together in this field too. So thank you.
This is a very interesting idea. And Nia, I think we have to discuss it in life and environment. Okay? Later on. Yeah, I really think it's a good idea. Thank you. So let's go on.
Yeah.
We plan to finalize at 3:30, right? We have 9 minutes, Neil?
Yes,
Yeah?
it's true. It's true.
Okay.
Yes.
9 minutes. So,
Okay.
yeah, I said. So then I skip some slides because now we see some practical examples. Maybe I can run a little bit through this. So one of our work was, for example, to build up a business directory for wind energy in our state, to say where the competence, where the companies who are partners in the regions, from developers, from service companies, and so on. So this is very important. Another one is to build up a cluster, for example, for hydrogen and e-mobility. You see this cluster has more than 500 members that are the university, that are industry partners, and we are organizing it from our agency with 8 people. And one topic, for example, is to develop hydrogen as a model region, because this model region program from the government is also part of the incentive structure. So if you are a model region to develop, for example, the hydrogen idea, then you get some money from the local government. So therefore, it's very important to be part of it. Another one is here, for example, the infrastructure in hydrogen. You can do this also with e-mobility, with battery-based, yeah. But also the infrastructure. You need filling stations. You need a hydrogen pipeline. You need an international link, because, well, if you have a hydrogen car, you will travel to Paris or maybe to Amsterdam. So you need to have a station there on your way. So all this is part of concept work. At the end, also to develop platforms, to develop a public bus platform. Yeah, just to see it here. So we have no more than 70 buses here in our area. Or also to develop trucks, yeah, because with battery-driven engine, this is not possible. You need another fuel. So that's a solution, to have hydrogen solutions for trucks. Another way started earlier is the energy efficiency path. There are regulations from the EU, there are national regulations, and our focus was just to develop industries who have the same question, yeah, to collect these questions and to have an answer on this. Maybe it's the food industry, or it's the question of how hospitals are dealing with efficiency, just especially paper industry, textile industry, use a lot of water. So how can we work with them? The next part is efficiency in buildings. This is a question with public buildings. We are talking with the communities. Here are some easy instruments like street lighting or technologies which are available, but also public buildings here, zero emission standard schools. That's not typical in Germany. That's very innovative and modern. Looking to the cogeneration, what is really important, because we have so many companies producing wasted heat, yeah. So how can we use this heat to use it for further aspects, like for district heating, to heat buildings, or to bring it to the companies back in another way. The building sector, as I mentioned, is very important. 17 million people living here. And we developed together with a team of us the 100 climate protection estates. So this is a roadmap to develop city areas under the focus on CO2 emission reduction. Yeah, that's quite interesting. So what can we do to reduce the CO2 footprint from these city areas? And you can see it here. It's covered all our state, and it's the integration of solar. It's the integration of isolation. It's the integration of heat or ice storage solution. It's the integration of mobility questions, charging solutions, and so on and so on. This is a big program also for this government. And you can see here, the target was 100. We're reaching now 93. So we are nearly at the end of this, but a new program is in the developing phase. You can see here some pictures of these settlements. And what is very important is, yeah, the energy transition takes place locally. Yeah, the wind park is an influence in the local community. The noise, the view, the taxation, all this has a local impact. And that's always important to deal with the local community, to get in touch with the local community. You can see here a bigger example. The city of Essen was green capital 2017. And as I said, the picture you saw before, these 1,000 chimneys is also in Essen. It's not only in Gelsenkirchen. The Ruhr Valley was only chimneys. And what is today, you can see in the pictures on the right side, it's a green zone now, yeah? Another really big part, and I would like to invite you to visit this small community in the northern part of the area. It's a small community, 7,000 people, and they decided we want to be 100% renewable by our own investments. And they have a strategy, like a tube map. You see it here with 150 activities, 7 fields of actions, some lead projects financed also by public money. But this is a local footprint and a local way. And that's very, very successful. We know that Japanese cities are looking for it. We know that cities from Arabia are coming to see what is the solution, and so on and so on. So that's very, very interesting. Yes, so now I run through, I jump back, and you can see here a picture of this energy park. It's an energy park with wind turbines. You can see here the towers. It's an energy park with solar panels. And here in the building phase, you have a bioenergy park together with storage solution. So they also integrated the storage concept if there is too much of power in the grid, and so they can store these energy. And now they are integrated hydrogen buses because they want to produce hydrogen from this, so green hydrogen from this power park for their, let's say, local bus infrastructure. So this was a very fast run to have some minutes for discussion. Thank you. Thank you to you all.
How big is this area of the last?
This area, well, I don't know, 30 square kilometers. So just a small community and a lot of land around. So they have a lot of bioenergy. They have a good site for wind turbines. Each wind turbine is about 3 megawatt or 3.5 megawatt. So they're very high towers, 200 meters high. So they are earning a lot of energy in this park. Yeah, so there's many, many more examples. And I believe there's a must to get in touch again to exchange some more information and project ideas.
Sure. Any other questions before we end? Okay, I want to thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Lindker. Thank you, Gil, Yaron. It was really astonishing and profound presentation. Thank you. And I believe we'll be in touch. Yeah, we'll discuss it internally. Thank you very much for your time all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.